Hi, this is Michelle Federer, who played Nessarose in the original Broadway cast of Wicked, and you're tuning into A Cup of Broadway.
In a world where melodies soar, there's a podcast you should explore. Two voices ring out with glee, Addison and Molly, can't you see? A cup of Broadway, oh what a treat. With every sip, your heart will beat. Fortunes and tales of the stage, it's all the Broadway rage.
Hi, I'm Addison.
And I'm Molly, and welcome to our first episode of A Cup of Broadway. Today, our episode will be focusing on Wicked. And since Wicked is so big right now, we are going to be splitting it into two parts. So today we'll be focusing on Act 1, and next week you'll have to tune in and we'll be focusing on Act 2. Every week we will be discussing the music of that certain show, and we'll kind of give our top 5 and then maybe give you some info about the show, just so you know what it's kind of about. And yeah, and we'll have some amazing interviews. And so let's get into it.
Yeah. Now, Wicked has been on Broadway since 2003 and making over 20 years. As of October 2024, it's the fourth longest running show in Broadway history.
The musical is told from the perspective of two witches, Elphaba and Glinda, before and after Dorothy Gale's arrival in Oz. The story explores the complex friendship between Elphaba, who becomes the Wicked Witch of the West, and Glinda, who becomes Glinda the Good. Let's get into our top 5.
Okay. Do you want to start with your number 5?
Sure. So my number 5 is No One Mourns the Wicked. I love that song, and I feel like no one talks about it much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, it just started getting popular because of Ariana Grande.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I feel... Okay, so for my number 5, I put Dancing Through Life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's definitely more popular now because people had, like, the whole dance trend.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
But it's just a jam. It's fire. I love it.
It's so good.
Yeah. And ironically, my number 4 is No One Mourns the Wicked.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yes.
My number 4 is Defying Gravity.
Mm.
Yeah. I think normally it probably would be higher, but I've just heard that song a little bit too many times. Yes. So that's why it's at 4 and not any higher than that.
Yeah. But like with No One Mourns the Wicked, it's so impressive vocally just for anyone who sings the song.
Oh, yes, it really is.
So like hearing it get resurfaced, I guess, into like people talking about it again, I feel like it deserves more rep.
Yeah, I think it's finally giving it's finally getting the recognition it deserves.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Okay, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is Dancing Through Life.
Nice.
I love all the different characters that sing in that. Like, you know, we don't hear from Nessa and any other time in the musical.
I know. And
she gets to sing in this one, so that's cool.
Yes. My number 3 is What Is This Feeling?
Ooh, yes.
That's
actually my number 2.
It's such a good song.
Oh my gosh, the harmonies are so good.
Yes. And like, props to ensemble.
Oh,
like,
yes.
Without it, I don't know if it would be as good.
I agree. Yeah.
And
same thing with going back to No One Mourns the Wicked. The ensemble, sorry. The ensemble really shines in No One Mourns the Wicked too.
Yes.
I think a lot in Wicked, honestly. The ensemble shines.
Yes, I agree.
Sorry, you were going to say.
No, I was just going to say my number 2 spot was One Short Day.
Oh, nice.
Like, there's so many different parts of that song that really show out to me. Because, like, basically, like, ensemble song, and then it's, like, Elphaba and Glinda have their own parts in it. And it's, I don't know, I'm so mesmerized by it.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yes. And then my number one, which I feel like doesn't get enough love at all, is The Wizard and I.
Yes, that's my number one too.
Yes, I just feel like everyone always talks about, Defying Gravity and Popular, but I just feel like no one ever talks about The Wizard and I. So, yeah, it's the best song.
Absolutely.
Probably all of Wicked, I will say. Yeah.
That's solid.
Mm-hmm. And then we do have our least favorite from Act 1.
Okay. On the count of 3, we'll say it and then we'll see if it's the same.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
A Sentimental Man.
It's so boring.
It's not needed.
No.
Mm-mm.
Especially in the movie, it just sounded so auto-tuned.
Yes.
So bad.
It's sad. Yeah.
Like, I was going to put Dear Old Shiz, but I was like, the harmonies are impressive in
So
that.
was I, yeah.
I'm just gonna do the safe option and just
Mm-hmm.
put A Sentimental Man.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. It's so buns. It's not good. It's not good.
No, it's not.
Like, I feel like Wicked does have its songs you can skip. This is definitely the number one skip.
For sure. Yeah.
It's like, it's good for the plot, not good for my ears.
Mm-mm.
It's not
I agree. Yeah. So, do you want to get into the interview now?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, cool. We have a very special guest for you today, and we are going to talk, all things Wicked. So, enjoy. Joining us now, we have Michelle Federer, who played Nessarose in the original Broadway cast of Wicked. Hi.
Hi. How are
It's
you?
so nice to have you on. I'm good. How are
Thank
you?
Good, thanks.
That's
Nice
good.
Saturday morning.
Yes.
Well, afternoon. Whatever.
Yeah. So let's get right into it. What was your favorite part about being in Wicked?
Well, if I didn't say meeting my husband, I would probably be kicked out of the house. So I'm going to say meeting my husband. I have always loved being a part of something original and new. It's kind of the most creative that you can be as an actor. You kind of, you get to improvise and sort of put your 2 cents in, which when a show is written and established and tried and true, you don't necessarily get to have those kinds of talks and space to kind of play around. So I love that. I loved the cast. We became really, really good friends. We actually still all keep in touch. We have a huge group chat and
Oh, I love that.
yeah, it cracks me up. Yeah. And, I had worked with Joe Mantello, who was the director. I had worked with him before. I thought he was absolutely incredible. So, I had wanted to work with him again. And I was also a huge fan of Stephen Schwartz. And as a matter of fact, one of my audition songs was a song called Lion Tamer that ties back to Heights Youth Theater, which Molly, I know your dad and your aunt and your uncle were a part of, because the director there introduced us to that song, which is Lion Tamer by Stephen Schwartz. So I had grown up loving this song and would sing it for auditions. And I actually sang that song for my Nessarose audition to Stephen Schwartz, which was nerve-wracking. But it was actually kind of the right feeling of a song and feeling for the character. So I got brave and did it. And it worked out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
It was fantastic.
It's not every day that you get to be in something that is like being done for the first time.
Totally. And we had no idea that Wicked would become what it's become.
Yeah, that's actually one of my next questions. Did you ever think it was gonna be like this? I mean, it's crazy.
It is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
No. Never thought it was going to be like this at all. We had our out of town tryout in San Francisco, and it was, Wicked's like a really big technical show. And during previews or during tech rehearsal, we were just having like tons of problems. And I remember the very first preview, we thought nobody was going to come. We were like, oh my God, this is a mess. Nobody's going to come. And the opening number started, and I'm not sure if it's like this on Broadway still, I can't remember, but there used to be this enormous cloth hat, like huge, that the entire cast could fit under. So they would spin, like the dancers would run around holding this hat. Imagine like, the game Parachute in gym class.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so imagine it's like a parachute, but then it comes into a point, like a witch's hat.
Oh my goodness.
And so they would run around, and then the hat would get sucked through the center of the stage and disappear, and it was left. So the stage was left full of the mob. We called them the mob. Mm-hmm. And so the curtain rose, and you hear the da, 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 right? Mm-hmm. And it was the hat, and the audience went so crazy. And I was on stage. I was actually on part of the scaffolding. And we thought, I saw everybody's face was sort of like, what's going on? We thought something went wrong. We didn't understand, because it was like this huge, almost scream. And everybody sort of like looked at, and we realized they were clapping and cheering for the hat.
Oh, wow.
And that was literally second one. And so everybody sort of got their bearings quickly and was like, oh, people are really into this. And we haven't done anything yet. Nobody's sung anything. No Kristin Chenoweth yet. No Idina Menzel yet. It was just the image of the hat.
Wow.
And so that show, we were sort of learning that The Wizard of Oz was just so powerful in people's minds. Mm-hmm. And to see this backstory, it was just like so exciting for people. And then the next day when we were coming to the theater, so it was our second preview, there was this huge line around, like, imagine like a big city block in New York City. Mm-hmm. It was around the block just to try to get tickets to come to the preview. So we were like, okay. Had no idea.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty cool.
I bet. I actually have 2 requests for some questions. This one is from my cousin Aubrey. And it was just, what was your whole audition process like to get into Wicked, or just building up to that point?
Yeah, I actually had, let's see, 1, 2, 3. I had 4 auditions for Wicked. Mm-hmm. At the time, I was in a musical at Lincoln Center called A Man of No Importance. And it was directed by Joe Mantello. And so he said, I want you to come in for this new musical I'm doing. And I said, okay. And so I went to my first audition, and it was Joe and Stephen Schwartz and maybe Winnie. I don't know. Maybe Winnie Holtzman, the writer, the musical director, Stephen Aremus, and I think that was it. Maybe the choreographer, Wayne Salento. And I sang Lion Tamer. And I think I read a Nessarose scene. And then I was called back to dance. And I don't dance.
Oh no.
And I was like, Joe, I don't dance. And he said, what are you talking about? You're the dance captain of A Man of No Importance, which I was, because everybody else in the cast was like in their 70s. And they were like, you do it.
Oh no.
You do it. And I was like, okay. So there wasn't really any dancing. It was sort of like move stage right, move stage left on the beat, right? And I was like, Joe, I don't dance. And he was like, you'll be fine. And then, so it was a song called Which Way is the Party, which actually was replaced with Dancing Through Life. But originally it was a song called Which Way is the Party, but it was it was the Ozdas Ballroom. So it was like very similar choreography to it. And I couldn't do any of it. I did like a scarecrow move and that was it. And I was like, oh no, I've blown it. And yeah, so I thought I really blew it. Then I got called to meet with the musical director, Stephen Aremus, and to sing through some stuff. I think he was trying to get an idea of my range, maybe. And that was on my birthday. That was on my 30th birthday. So I was like, oh, wow. And then I got called back to sing and read for the producers. And it was like, it was a big group of people. And I kind of panicked a little bit, thinking that maybe Lion Tamer was too simple of a song. So I sang a different song, and Joe Mantello, and it was like, okay. And Joe Mantello called me that night and he was like, why did you do that? Why did you sing that song? He was like, why didn't you sing the first song you sang? And I was like, I don't know. I panicked. And he was like, listen to me. You're going to get a call back, but you need to sing Lion Tamer. And I was like, okay. So I went in a fourth time, and it was in a theater. And there were like 3 of us, maybe 4 of us. And so I went up on stage, and I have to say, like, I have terrible nerves when I audition, like terrible. I should be medicated. Terrible.
Oh no.
And so I went on stage, but they had the house lights out and they just had the lights on stage. And suddenly I couldn't see them. And I felt total relief. Like I couldn't see them at all. And I just like pretended I was somewhere else and sang Lion Tamer and read. And I actually was in a play at the time. And so I got back on a bus and I went to this theater in Connecticut. And the next day we didn't have cell phones, by the way. This was pre-cell phone. So I was backstage and there was a green room and there was a phone, like a pay phone at the green room. And I called my agent. It was like a half hour or something. And before I was going to go on, and I called her. She had left me a message. And so I called her and she said, you got it. And I was like, I like left my body. I almost started crying.
Oh.
And she said, do you want to hear who's in the cast? And I said, yeah. And she said, Idina Menzel, who I knew who she was, and Kristin Chenoweth, and Joel Grey, and I knew who he was. And then she said, Norbert Leo Butz. And in that moment, I thought, oh my God, I've done it. He's the best actor I've ever seen in my life. And I get to be in a show with him. I can't believe it. So I do remember that moment. And then there was the hitch was the show that I was in was scheduled to be at the Hartford stage, and then we were supposed to go down to Texas to the Alley Theater. So it was a joint production. So I knew that I was going to have to leave this production and break my contract. So I couldn't say anything to anyone. So I got this news, my first Broadway show, and I couldn't tell anyone. And I pretended that the phone call was nothing. And I went and did the show, and I called my parents that night. And then I had to call the producers and the director the next day and tell them what happened. And yeah, and that was it. And I came back home and I started rehearsal.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was a crazy experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. What else?
What's your favorite thing about Nessa?
My favorite thing about Nessa, I liked her sort of innocence and her hopefulness in the first act. And in the second act, I liked getting in touch with the weight of responsibility that she had. And I also really loved that she was magical, that she actually was a witch. I thought that was so cool. Yeah. I mean, she's not like the most likable character, you know. But yeah, I connected with a lot of it, to be honest.
That's awesome. I think Nessa deserves a solo.
Yeah, really?
Yes.
You know why they had me dance in the original audition? It's because they were thinking that when these are spoilers. You think that's okay?
Yeah.
Okay. That when she stands in the second act, that she would have done a big dance routine.
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness.
And then they were like, no. She'll just sing a little bit.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I loved my costumes too, because Susan Hilferty truly is a genius, and she was so thoughtful about everything, and she worked with all of us individually, and like she did things like I had this pink party dress, and originally in San Francisco, second act Nessarose was wild. I had like this wild hair, this big like coral covered robe that I was wearing, and it was almost like she went insane, like she was a little crazy. And so in my wig there were pieces of that pink party dress woven into the wig.
Oh,
like she couldn't, that was the best night of her life, and that's where she stopped, type thing. So Susan was really, really thoughtful about the costuming, and it made it sort of like emotional to me to put the clothes on. And then we realized that Nessa shouldn't be this like crazy diva, which is kind of what it was in San Francisco. And one day I came to rehearsal and I was wearing a black headband, and my hair was in a bun, and my hair was like all pulled back, and I had this big thick black headband on and a black turtleneck. And Joe looked at me and said, that's Nessa in the second act. She has to be like really tight. Everything has to be tight and stoic, and like she's in mourning. And so that's how they came up with her black dress with like that high collar, and my hair was like really slicked back into a tight bun.
Imagine if you chose to wear
cool,
something
right?
different that day.
I know. Isn't that cool though?
That's such a cool story. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. So it's like those little things that made me feel like will always make me feel ownership over that part, even though it's so fun to watch other people play it. Like I'll always feel like I had a part in making it, and it was sort of made around me, as were each of the characters were sort of made around everybody in that original cast. Yeah, it's cool. It's a really cool experience to be a part of something like that.
I can't get over just Nessa just standing up and just breakdancing. That's so funny.
I don't know what they were thinking, but it was brand new. They didn't know what it was. So they were like, well, maybe she's a dancer. Who knows?
Yeah.
Not with me in the role.
Do you have a favorite song from Wicked?
What I really like is No Good Deed. Elegant.
Yes.
I love that. I always thought that was so creepy. I love the orchestration in it. I loved what it looks like. Have you guys seen Wicked?
Yes.
On stage?
Mm-hmm.
You know how
I
you
have.
haven't seen it, Addison. You got to see it. But it's really cool because Elphaba, if I remember right, I think she comes from underneath the stage and she rises up and her hair is down for the first time. And she has that book in front of her, the Grimoire, and she's doing this spell. And then there's wind that's blowing. So her hair is like crazy. And I just love it. I just think it's like the weirdest, creepiest. I always thought Wicked was like, I had read the book before I auditioned for the musical, and the book is really dark and creepy. So I loved when the stage play got weird. And so for sure, that's my favorite song.
I love that. I think that song definitely doesn't get enough love. It's always Defying Gravity that they focus on.
Yeah. And Idina was like, I don't know, something was going on during that song. She was just so invested in it. It was cool. It was cool to watch. I would sort of watch it from backstage. I loved to just sort of peek and watch her do it. It was great.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. That actually kind of ties into the next question. How was it starring alongside Idina Menzel and Kristin Chenoweth?
Yeah, they're both, it's so interesting. Like, they're both fantastic and great people. But when you are the lead of a huge Broadway show, they don't have a lot of extra vocal power, energy to sort of socialize. Like they have such a heavy lift on them that it's interesting. You don't really get to know the leads of something, especially if you're like a supporting character, if you're in the ensemble, nearly as much. So the people that I hung out with more and had more contact with were the ensemble. And obviously Bach and Norbert was off stage a lot as Fiyero. Fiero's not like a huge part. So, but Idina was on stage almost the entire show.
Oh, yes.
And so was Kristin. And but we had this fun thing. So when we started Wicked on Broadway, it was the first year, are you ready for this? Of American Idol.
Oh my gosh.
It was either the first or second year of American Idol. So Idina had a TV in her room, and her room was right off the stage. So we would run off stage and run directly into her. She's on stage, but we would watch American Idol until we had to go back. So we had to go back on stage. Isn't that so funny?
I love that.
We watched Kelly Clarkson win, and like we were all like in our costumes and weird makeup, like watching American Idol. Yeah. So she was like cool, and she just couldn't hang out with us at all. But her work ethic was extraordinary. She would in between 2 show days, right? So she sang for 3 hours, and then she would go to a yoga class because she had to keep her energy up. If she crashed during the 2 to 3 hours that were off, she couldn't, it was too hard to like sing all of that again. So she would go to it was an hour and a half Bikram yoga class. I don't know if you know what that is, but it is, first of all, it's like 110 degrees in the room or something. And it's so hard, so hard. So she would do that. She would sweat green, and then she would eat and start getting ready. But so her body would like stay up. And then she would also, like, on the days that it was just a 1 show day, she would run on a treadmill for like an hour before she would come to the theater to start getting ready. So she was just like very disciplined. So it's like hard to hang out,
Yeah.
But I loved
get
her.
that.
I love her. Yeah, she's fantastic. And so is Kristin. Kristin is, as you can imagine, hilarious.
Yes, for sure.
This is another request. This is from my cousin Layla. What's your opinion on the movie adaptation of Wicked?
I loved it. And I liked that using a camera, you can see close up. So I thought that when Elphaba comes into the Ozdos ballroom and everybody's laughing at her and she does that dance, I loved moments like that could sort of like be drawn out, because when you're on stage, most of the audience can't see what's happening in the actors' faces, because I think it's like a 2,000 seat theater or something like that. It's huge. So in film, you get to really see the emotion that's going on for Elphaba, for Glinda. So I really, really loved all of that. It was really, we had this special thing happen where the producer of the Broadway show and of the movie, the lead producer, invited the original cast and the current Broadway cast to a screening of Wicked before it was released. And John Chu was there, the director, and Cynthia was there, and Ariana was there. And so we all sat together in a private screening room and watched the movie. And it was absolutely wild to see it, because we were sitting with the original cast. So we're watching this movie going, wait a minute, I remember when that moment was created, or I remember when that person improvised that line, and now it's in this movie for like the entire world to see. So I was sitting with Chris Fitzgerald, who was the original Bach, and he kept saying to me, I'm leaving my body. I'm leaving my body. What's going on? I'm leaving my body. It was like so special. And we got to bring our kids, and my daughters met Ariana Grande and they freaked out.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was so fun. Like when Cynthia sang The Wizard and I, we all got to turn to her and say like, that was amazing, and applaud her in real time. So it was just like so incredibly special. It was almost like a cast party. Like,
oh, I love that.
You know how you have a cast party and you watch the video together?
Yes.
That's what it felt like. That's what it felt like. It was so, so special.
Yeah.
There are definitely moments where I'm like, this is weird. Like going into Target and seeing like a Nessarose doll. It's weird. It's really weird.
Yeah.
But, it's amazing. It's an amazing thing.
It's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then for our last question, I kind of wanted it to end on kind of a gentle note, I guess, since our podcast is circled around, a cup of Broadway. Do you have a drink of choice that you would want to put in your mug?
A drink of choice. Well, listen, girls, I'm not fancy. I love just a cup of coffee. Is that what we're really asking? Or are you asking my favorite Broadway show?
No, any kind of coffee. Doesn't matter what.
Coffee with half and half. I'll take it anytime. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yes.
Yeah. Well,
this was
are we at the end? Are we at the end of our Yellow Brick Road?
Yeah. Yes. Unfortunately.
You're welcome. You're welcome, guys.
It was
I
so
hope
lovely.
it was okay. It was nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Well, that was our interview. Thank you so much to Michelle Federer for coming on and having us interview her. It was amazing. What was your favorite part?
Oh, I don't know. I think, the dancing was really fun.
Yes.
I really like the idea of just Nessa standing up and immediately just breakdancing on the ground.
It's so funny, yes.
And then I also really like the story of the screening.
Mm-hmm.
That one was really sweet.
Yes.
What about you?
I mean, the dancing thing was cool, and then with the hat, at the beginning of the show, it's so cool to find out things that have been changed since, when it workshopped or whatever, or first created. To think about what these people had in their minds that they changed over time is crazy, and it's so cool to learn about. I also loved about how she said it made it feel like it was her own, and with the whole costume thing.
Yes.
And that's how the costume of Nessa was made today, because of how she came into work.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And I think it's cool the way she said, it makes me feel like she shaped that character. And she did. I mean, she's the OG.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Just the thought of being a part of something original on Broadway just sounds like a dream.
Oh, it does. You get to be on the soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
You get to be the person that people look up to playing that role in the future. It's crazy. That's the person that you go off of and take, little inspirations from and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm. Also, can we bring up the fact that Wicked is basically a Wizard of Oz fan fiction?
Oh, it is completely. I love the idea of it, to explore the backstories of the Good Witch and Elphaba, and it's so cool.
Yeah. It's so unique.
Yes, I love when people come up with unique ideas.
Mm-hmm.
It's so refreshing, I guess you could say.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that concludes this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode.
New episodes release every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, and listen in on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Follow us at A Cup of Broadway on all social medias.
And we hope we poured you an enjoyable cup of Broadway.